Hey everyone, welcome back to Talk Tech with Tiff. In this episode, I sat down with Margaux, who is the Global Community Director at Toptal. We talked everything freelance. She works with the top 3% freelancers at Toptal, and she shared all the details and advice she would have for anyone who's looking to get into freelancing. Also, too, I linked down my newsletter below, so make sure to go check it out. All right, let's get into it.
Welcome to my new series called Talk Tech with Tiff, where I am sitting down with industry professionals to hear about their career journeys and current roles. I created this series to hear from people who are established in the tech industry so that we can all learn what these individuals do in their day-to-day jobs and the type of opportunities that are out there. Okay, let's get started.
Hi Margaux, how are you today?
Hi, good, thank you. How are you, Tiff?
I am good. I am impressed with you that you made it here so seamlessly. You literally came right from a flight to here.
From the flight from Winnipeg all the way here, not too far.
I know, during a very busy weekend with crazy traffic, but you made it.
We made it. Here we are.
I know. Well, I'm very excited to have you here today. I'm very familiar with Toptal. It's the number one freelancing platform, in my opinion, and I think that's a general consensus as well. But before we jump into everything Toptal and freelancing related, tell me a little bit about yourself and your career that led you to Toptal.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've always worked in kind of a community building type of function, or maybe people would be more familiar with calling it kind of community engagement. So that's, marketing and sales and events and bringing people together over various things. And then over the years, got into the tech industry, doing the same kind of functions in the tech industry. I was working for certain associations, helping a lot of tech companies. I had a podcast, interviewing startups and tech companies. And so it all kind of melded together until I came to Toptal. And so just before I was a program director running big programs across the province I was in, when I came to Toptal, the role that I have now is the director of community globally. My job now is to engage a group of Toptal talent. Mm-hmm. So people might think of them as freelancers or contractors, right, that are vetted and inside our network. And my team and I try and do whatever we can to really engage them and make them feel like part of a community, make them feel like they're part of something larger so that they can kind of find this sense of belonging and feel connected to other people in our network, even though they're spread out all over the world, right? Thousands and thousands of these freelancers. And so with an organization like Toptal, when you're inside those walls and you make it in the network after screening, and I'm sure we'll talk about what that looks like, but then you have kind of other people that are like you. They're the top 3% of freelancers, of developers, designers, project managers, product managers, and some finance people too. Right. And so we call those our verticals. So once they're in, then they want to find like-minded peers, right? So my team in community is responsible to allow them those opportunities to connect with each other. So programs, events, online chat, all those kind of things, anything that gives them that sense of belonging and connection to other people and ultimately then to Toptal as well.
That's incredible. I love that, the company really takes the extra step in building that community. It's not necessarily just, okay, now you're a freelancer and you're kind of in your own silo. It's no, let's build this community, connect with one another. That's huge.
Yeah, it's such a big difference. I think there are platforms people can just kind of like jump into online, but you're not going to get that same camaraderie because we're actively, our team is actively working on ways to help people connect like that. Yeah. Also, I think just knowing that people are vetted in the high way that we do to kind of get past those walls and get into the network at Toptal. Yes. I think it gives you a certain comfort level in the type of peers that you're going to start interacting with. I think people see it as a little more valuable, right? It's 100%. A very valuable network around the world of high-level professionals living the same kind of lifestyle you are as a freelancer.
Exactly. You know that the individuals you will be connecting with are, I don't know if it's the right word, but at your level almost, or as experienced as you, or that quality is there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Toptal's really been investing in that since the beginning. I've only been there a few years myself, but the community team always did exist, which is really nice to see. Sometimes it takes companies a while to kind of add that to their radar. Mm-hmm. And a lot of big companies are doing it now. Community jobs are becoming more and more prominent. Yes. So it's really exciting for the industry on that side for me. And then really great that I've found an organization that really values that.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And I know you, throughout learning more about yourself and your career, you've kind of explained about what Toptal is, but for those who might not be as familiar with Toptal, how would you describe it to someone?
It's on-demand talent. So this means that we have the top talent. We can provide them on demand, like immediately, to the top clients around the world. And so, one thing that we talk about is that there are amazing, very talented people all over the world, and think of like small countries, that maybe you don't even know where they're located, right? Yeah. But in those countries, there's not necessarily always that same level of opportunity all over the world, right? And then flip that coin, we've got clients that are pretty big sometimes that are not in the biggest cities always, right? We've got Fortune 500 companies that are based in big cities, and maybe they can find enough talent, but there's a demand for talent right now, right? And there has been for a while, especially high-level tech talent. So the other side of that coin too is that clients might be in regular sized cities not finding enough talent. There's this amazing talent in other countries, like ready and available, and they can work on your hours. They can shift things around, right? They don't have to physically be in the office. So once this marketplace is so important now to fill roles both directions, right? People can get amazing roles and stay in their city or country where their family is, where they want to live. Nice. And our clients can get access to the top talent that just may not happen to have been in their city.
100%. And I know you mentioned, this made me think about it, is the freelancers can work on preferred hours, but on the flip side of things, just from a personal experience, I work with a freelancer who is, located in Europe and works completely different hours than I do. And in that situation, I actually really enjoy it because I give the work and the tasks, and then when I wake up in the morning, it's all complete. So there's that side too, which is, it depends what the company wants, but
yep.
It can really, really go both ways with being beneficial.
Yeah, of course. And our clients can dictate that up front.
Yes.
So for certain organizations, it's very important that that talent be available on their time zone for the, meetings that they have, for the stand-ups they have every week, the touch bases. That's all still totally appropriate and expected. So if you are planning on, looking at this as an industry, you can't just think, well, I'll do anything I want all the time and show up when I want to. Like, no, there's still obviously specific expectations, and our clients can dictate those. Sometimes they do want people in their city, and so we'll find them that right talent in their city. But most of the time, it's okay for them to be located wherever they are, so long as they meet certain expectations and our brackets that our clients will note in advance. They know what they're signing up for, and then everybody wins.
Exactly. It's a win-win. I'm going to reference here because, the topic of freelancing itself is, I get so many questions around freelancing, and I don't want to miss anything. So I'm going to look at my notes here for some of the questions. Yeah. So one of the questions I had is around screening process. So when I go on Toptal, it's the top 3% of freelancers on your platform. For someone who is, could you provide some insight into what this process entails and what potential freelancers can expect when they are going in for this interview or screening process?
Yeah. I think the screening process is the most daunting part, and the thing that most people that are looking to work in this kind of world of contract work are really curious about. Mm-hmm. We definitely screen for various things. So we screen for subject matter expertise, of course, like do you know your skill inside and out, professionalism overall. So, are you coming to your meetings on time and when you're supposed to? Are you dressed appropriately? Is your background an appropriate background? Because if it's not for your screening, it's probably not going to be for our clients either, right? Things like that. And of course, their communication skills. So as much as we do have talent in over 80 countries around the world, English language proficiency is, of course, an important part of it. So that's kind of like high level. I can talk through the process a little bit more too, as far as the common questions that we get when it comes to our screening. And, a lot of this can be found on our website. We don't hide what the process looks like. I think maybe sometimes people are just excited, they move fast, But the first level really is language and personality. It's like intake screening, kind of like you'd have for a normal job. Usually people talk to a recruiter up front before they get anywhere near the actual hiring manager, right? And they're just kind of screening that first level. So for us, we say about 30% will pass that. Okay. So there's still a pretty strict rate right off the bat, right? Yeah. Of what we're looking for. Then from there, we do an in-depth skill review. That could also be stuff that's that we're not necessarily watching you do, but there's certain tests you have to pass, right? Yes. And there's practice tests you can do, not with us necessarily, but other organizations. We're not giving away what our tests are, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
And then now we're down to half of that or making it through. Yes. Then we have a live screening process. So this is doing an activity, proving your skill in front of a screener.
Yes.
So they can actually see you and really kind of like you remember when you were in school, there's sometimes tests where like the teacher just really wants to see how you think, like how did you problem solve that thing, right? You might not get through the whole thing in the time allotted, but at least they can see your problem solving skills and how you attack it.
Exactly.
Right? So that's kind of what that stage is like, depending on what skill you have, how in demand it is, where the market's at. Certain skills will also have, some will and some won't, have a larger project required. So something that you take home could be like 1 to 3 weeks long that you spend on this project. So there's an investment in time to get into the Toptal network. Sometimes people are waitlisted. Sometimes people have to try again. They don't make it through. We might give them an amount of time before we ask them to come back. Maybe they need to upscale in certain areas. But otherwise, like, the top 3% are who we take. So that has to filter out a lot of people along the way, right? Exactly. Our clients have a certain expectation from us. And so, but people can try again. I think that's like an important thing to note. And it's really typically not a spot for people that are kind of coming out of school, because all of those things we need you to pass, like you just probably don't have enough experience yet. Right?
Yes, exactly. It's for, get that experience first, whether it be through, freelancing on a smaller scale, working for a company, and then when you really want to take your career to the next level with freelancing and have experience, that is when you go to your platform.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Based on your experience, we talk about the screening process, is there a particular skill or characteristic that seems to be a common denominator among the most successful freelancers that you've seen? I mean, Toptal interacts or has the top 3%. Is there a skill or characteristic that seems consistent?
Yeah. I mean, like we just said, of course, first you have to be incredibly well-versed in your skill set. Mm-hmm. I think some people come in sometimes too and they're like, well, can I also be this and this and this and this and this within the network?
Yeah.
Yes, if you're truly the top 3% at all those things, you can.
Yeah.
Otherwise, maybe start with one, get into the network with the one that is your true top skill, and then you can apply to be a part of other verticals, we call them, right? Like, or other skills. You can challenge the different skills and then add them onto your repertoire and then see more and more jobs available with us.
Yes.
So that's kind of a piece of it. But other than the obvious of technical skills, I mean, problem solving, to come back to that, is really so important, because we're an on-demand talent marketplace. It means that we have clients that we're sending you out to, tomorrow or in 2 days. And the client expectation is that you can jump in and help solve their problem.
Yes.
So it's literal, like being a problem solver is what you are literally doing, and you have to do it relatively quickly. Like, you have to be able to jump in and assess the problem clearly, find the ways to help. And I think the tricky other side of the coin of that sometimes is you've got people that jump in ready to help. They have this agile kind of personality, also an important kind of buzzword there in the skills that they need, the ability to be kind of agile. But is to really also like listen to and see what the problem truly is. I think sometimes when we're really, really skilled, maybe you and I even have done it in certain areas of our lives, you want to come in with a solution right away, right?
Yes.
And I literally just said you have to do that. But on the flip side of it is, did you truly take a minute though first to understand what the problem is?
100%. Because I'm sure, well, I'll speak from my experience. Sometimes when you're freelancing or consulting, the client can at some point say something, but that might not actually be, or how do you say it? The client might be asking for something, but it might be a little bit more you need to uncover to really understand what the problem is or what you are trying to solve. So that listening aspect is so essential.
Yep. Yeah, and so listening, communication, like we just said, and really at the end of the day, like if you're in the Toptal network, our talent are upholding the highest levels of integrity and professionalism, along with that communication that's really required, because that's what we're expecting of everybody in the relationships that we're putting together.
I love that. It's quality over quantity.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how critical do you believe, I think we just answered this, but the next question I was going to ask you is around communication. How critical is effective communication? I mean, we speak a lot about technical skills and how important those are in various roles that are on Toptal, for example, but where would you put communication on that scale?
Yeah, I mean, this is, like, we did just talk about it, but it is, like, I can add to it, because I think there's this, preconceived notion sometimes that really highly skilled technical people are like in a dark room coding by themselves, right? And it's like, if I'm the best at this, I can get into the Toptal network. Okay, yes, you need to have really high skills. We just talked about that. Yeah. But if you don't also have that communication piece, right? It's just, you're not going to make it.
Yes.
Right? Because that is not how it exists, right?
Exactly.
There are still absolutely expectations and check-ins and meetings.
Yes.
And there's a project manager or somebody, a product manager that you're going to have to check in your work with and show your work. And you have to be able to speak up too if something's gone wrong. Say there's a bug, say there's a holdup, say there's something that's going to set you back. The biggest thing, even when I was in private tech industry and then what happens here, there's the same hurdle sometimes, which is there can be very skilled people, and sometimes it can be cultural as well. Yeah. But remembering to speak up when there's going to be a delay is so important. Feeling like bold enough to do that. That's that big piece of communication, right? Because a client's not going to be frustrated, or even your boss, if you're working in a regular environment, like a client's not going to be frustrated if there is a delay, so long as they understand why it is and know about it. But if you don't communicate that and then there's a delay and you say, well, I kind of knew this whole time because this didn't happen, but you didn't communicate it on time, now they're going to be frustrated. Now you've put yourself in hot water.
100%. And I think even, communication is important regardless whether you're working on a team or freelancing, but I'm sure freelancing, it really takes it to the next level, because when you are a freelancer, you're not necessarily telling this information to your boss who will then communicate it to the client. You are the boss. You are the one who's communicating it to the client. So it becomes even more important.
Yep. Yeah, and depending on what kind of project that you're on with us, you may be with a group of peers where one of them's reporting up and you just have to report into that person. You know, it might be that you're the one constantly giving updates, but really, like, if you want the most successful career as a talent in the marketplace, like we offer at Toptal, then and even independently, there's definitely a very high expectation on the ability to communicate your skills up front, and then also what you're working on at the time.
Yes, communication is key.
Yep. Those soft skills, we can't get away from them, Tiff.
I know, we can't. We really can't. I remember earlier on in my career when I was first starting out and doing some software engineering roles, it was so often I would push off the soft skill questions, like practicing them, and focus on code. And then it'd come to the interview and, fine, I would do well on that. But then the soft skill questions, like, oh, I really should have spent more time on that, because I think sometimes we think that soft skills, or, whether it's in an interview or soft skills in general, just come naturally. And to some people they do, but for others, it's just like technical skills. It's a muscle that you need to really practice and continue to grow.
Yeah. I'm sure you've heard that great quote that's going around, which is that, like, AI is not going to take your job. A person who's really skilled using AI is going to take your job, right? Yes. And that I think sums it up right there. It's like there's still a person behind it who knows the right prompt to put in and who can communicate the results to the client, to that person, right? Like that's how, I think that's such a funny one, and it kind of, in a way, like personifies what we're talking about.
100%. I like that. That's a good parallel. Is there a particular strategy or approach that you've observed that helps top freelancers effectively manage their work-life balance? And I think this question really kind of relates to the communication piece around delays. Sometimes people get nervous or don't want to say anything about delays, and then in turn their personal life goes out the window. So what is a strategy or approach that you've seen work?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a couple ways we can talk about this topic, but I think in general, when we're thinking about people who want to take on this contract lifestyle, this freelance lifestyle, and how do they then make sure they don't just work 80 hours a week, or or not make enough money or whatever, right? There's all these fears that I think are common. I think, first of all, joining an organization like Toptal has a lot of value. And again, like Toptal, because there are options out there, but Toptal is, of course, the biggest, like we talked about at the beginning. But what we do that's unique is that we take away that whole piece of needing to focus on like accounts receivable, marketing and selling yourself, finding the new clients, right? If you're independently freelancing, you have to do all of those things on top of the thing that you're really good at, right? Say that's C# programming or whatever the thing is, right? That you're really good at. And so when you join a network like ours, you can forget about all that stuff and really focus on the piece that you're really good at and that you love. And so right away that allows you more balance, because you're doing the piece that you love most. You're not focused on these extra things that take away from that work. Yes. And I think people can become like a lot more relaxed in their work as well because of that. And then on top of that, you get a community, right? Which we started by talking about, which is my role, my passion, of course. But I think that also helps with that balance, because you find like-minded peers. You find a place that you belong in where you can find other people to really talk to about those things you love. You know, I use this example sometimes of just like an easy example to think of. If you're in Toronto, okay, and you love 3D printing and you're really good at it and you want to start some new project, right? But none of your friends here are really into it, like, you know, or you're traveling and working at the same time because you're a contractor.
Yeah.
And then over in Moldova, there's a 3D printing expert and they want to work on the exact same kind of project as you, right? If you're in a community like Toptal, we have a channel about 3D printing where you can find each other, and events virtually that we host so you meet each other. And so then you can find these like-minded people that have the exact same like skill set, knowledge, interest, you know, desire for a new project that you do, but they just don't physically live right next to you.
Oh, 100%. And it goes back to, you have this community that is the best of the best. So on top of being able to network with them, I'm sure there's a lot of learnings as well. Like, hey, did you discover this? Oh, I just found this. And it just continues to elevate you and your skill sets.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have channels called like Share Your Work or Share Your Gear. Like, so people, you know, what mic are you using when you have meetings with clients? Like whatever that thing is that you might want to talk about, whatever your interest is, there's a spot in our network because we have thousands and thousands of amazing talent from around the world, right? Yeah. And so, you know, we were talking about work-life balance, but it's like, I think when you find a community, it can like relax you into it. There's really common questions about taxes when you're starting to be a freelancer that people struggle with sometimes. And then when you have peers in your city or in your region, we also have, you know, areas to connect you based on geography. You can ask those questions to your peers. Hey, who did you use? What products, what, you know, solutions did you find? Do you have someone you can recommend to me to help me? Because if you are totally independent, again, not in a network like Toptal, you don't have access to those kind of peers' knowledge.
Exactly. It's almost like you are on an island by yourself if you don't have that. And, you know, going back to as well, you should be focusing on what you are an expert in and what you are passionate about. You know, when you are freelancing, and I think that's one of the things that sways a lot of people from freelancing is, well, I want to focus and be an expert in programming, not an accountant or not whatever the case is. So being able to really solely focus on your skill set and what you are good at is going to help elevate you and grow your career faster.
Yeah, absolutely. There was even an example. I love the topic of women in tech. I didn't mention this in my intro, but I do a lot of stuff on the side to support women in tech, and Toptal's doing a lot of things they enable me to do as well, which is really great. But there was a really wonderful woman in our network who I spoke to last year at Web Summit, actually.
Okay, amazing.
And we were talking about freelancing and how it's been for her since she's been in the Toptal network. And she was telling me that when she was pregnant, she was worried about contracting because it meant really not necessarily any mat leave coverage, right?
Oh, okay, yes.
But what was really amazing was you can set your hours to whatever you want them to be. So if you want to be 20 hours a week, you can just set your hours in a network like ours to 20 hours a week. And so what she did was set it to 60 hours a week, which we don't always recommend. You have to definitely like have earned that ability to do that and work more than the average. But, you know, 40, 50, 60 kind of thing. So what she did was really ramped up, worked really hard and really focused leading up to her time off because she had that flexibility and that ability to do so. And then when she went on mat leave, really, it's like she didn't have that obvious coverage, but she had a little bit of like a nest egg that she had built for herself because you can do that, right? And the other thing to note, like that those hours don't necessarily all have to be with us. Like we don't have an exclusivity clause, so you can have your own clients on the side that you maybe came in already having. Say right now you have a client, they reduced your hours to 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week. You're thinking, you know, I really want to supplement that somewhere. You can still apply to be part of the Toptal network and come in and then just put an availability with us of the other 20, right? Wow. So there's this flexibility where, so you can get partly, you know, someone you're already used to at home, and you don't want to sell yourself, you don't want to find new ones, you come to us for that in between.
Wow. Yeah. That's really incredible.
And then you can turn up the dial when you're ready to, right? If you want all of a sudden 40 because now that client's gone, then turn it up. Yeah.
It really sounds like you are in charge of your career.
You really are. I think that could be a misconception too of like what happens in these networks. You set your hours, like the amount of hours and also the hours you are physically available throughout the day.
Yes.
And you also set your rate.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I think that's a misconception there. You set your rate. So if you think you deserve $80 an hour, $100 an hour, that's what you get.
Yeah.
Any other fees and stuff that they work on top of that and outside of that.
Yeah.
We don't take from your amount. If you ask for $80 an hour, that's what you're taking home if you're booking that client or whatever the client might be. Yes. Sometimes clients will be less or more, and we'll ask you if you want to accept something that's more or less. I'm sure more people are going to say yes. Yeah. But right. So that's how it works.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that. That's incredible. It's a goal of mine now to be on your platform.
Yeah. There's a lot of agency there. Yeah.
Well, speaking about, you kind of just shared one, but around success stories, is there a success story about a freelancer who's been part of the community for a while now that you'd want to share?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. There are definitely so many, and I think a lot of them have a similar backstory. So yeah, definitely. And Moldova must be on my mind because I just used that as an example. And there was this woman I was just thinking of who's not the example I just gave you. Her name's Elena.
Okay.
And she was in Moldova.
Okay.
And she was fine. And she worked for a company that was physically located there. And I think she had a bit of hybrid toward the end, but was physically located in that country. And I think she was finding that, well, she was an executive at the same time too. She had a background in like developing a whole sales department. She was an executive in sales. Then she actually was the executive director, like the CEO of a startup. Wow. She took a startup from, I think, 9 people to like 150 people. She exited the startup, but was still like as a consultant for them. So we're talking like senior people on a network, right? I think again, like misconception of who's in there. Like we have authors and investors and like founders. We have all kinds of people. So she exits this startup because she was working like 15 hours a day. She had a family that she was like admittedly not seeing really, right? Felt like she was just in a place where she had accomplished a lot, but was kind of like, what am I doing? Like, and she really wanted to be also experiencing working with people outside of just Moldova. And again, kind of a common story here. Like this is a real story I'm telling you, but a lot of them sound so similar.
Yes.
They're like, I wanted to travel, or I wanted to get out of the, funk I was in.
Yeah.
So then she applies to Toptal, gets in the network, gets on a long-term client. So she's not having to like get, part-time here and there, little gigs. We have many clients that are long-term engagements as well. So she's been on it for, I think, 1.5 years now on that same engagement.
Wow.
Yep. And it's a company that saves lives in the medical industry. And that was something she was personally passionate about, but didn't really feel like there was an opportunity for her to go into that kind of work where she was. So on top of that, she gets to work with this organization that she's genuinely passionate about. And then finds she has still more, because she's not working 15 hours a day anymore like she was, she has time for extra stuff. Yes. So now with Toptal, with the community stuff that we do in my department, she's volunteering with Mentors Without Borders, an organization that we support.
Yeah.
We built a virtual hospital in Africa for Health Gateway Africa Trust. We helped them as part of that project through our top volunteer program, we call it, where we have top talent like her contribute to organizations like that. So she helped build this virtual hospital as a project manager. And all that on top of this role that she felt truly passionate about, and moved to Madrid because her and her family wanted to live somewhere else. So early in that process, she moved to Madrid where she wanted to live. Being in Madrid, she joined the Google Startups organization that's physically located there and goes to some of their training to upskill herself because she has time to do that on top of everything else. So it's like literally her life became everything that she was looking for by taking that leap and coming into the freelance world. But again, she's working a normal 40-hour week full-time client.
Yes.
It's not this scary, there's a lot of 40-hour opportunities. I think that's another misconception that people think with contract work and on being in an on-demand marketplace.
It sounds so fulfilling too, being able to gain that time back and as you mentioned, volunteer in other areas as well and use that time for things that are more fulfilling than working 15-hour days, for example, for the same pay, if not less. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. That example almost gives me chills.
It's exciting.
It is really exciting.
Yeah.
And Madrid, I mean, come on.
Right? I mean, I won't say that on the core team, the staff of Toptal too, we also can be located anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So this narrative, is something that I also feel personally, and I'm very happy to be a part of, because you can work from anywhere now, right?
You can, exactly. There's no need for...
Yep.
I know. I don't know why you and I are both located in places that are very cold in the winter.
You're not wrong. Family, I think, Tiff, at the end of the day.
It's all family. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Well, on that note of 40-hour work weeks, or long-term clients, I should say, what is the dynamics between freelancers and top companies? Do freelancers at Toptal tend to form long-term partnerships? I know you kind of spoke about this example, a long-term partnership with a single company, or is it more common to work with a range of different companies?
Yep. Yeah, we certainly have both, because you can set your hours to different amounts, that can vary what you're open to. But as far as from the client side, what we see, we certainly see a mix of both. We have some clients that want a whole team of people from us. So we're putting together kind of a Toptal team, if you will. And then we deliver 10 people or 20 people to work on a project until its completion. So we're actually delivering an outcome for you. Say someone says, we want to build a fan engagement app for our sports team. we want it to look like this, go do it. Like we don't know, maybe they don't know what they need. So certain clients might say, does that mean we need a React developer and a designer? Or do we need UX UI? Do we need a project manager? Like, they might not know.
Yeah.
So sometimes they just want the outcome. And we deliver a whole team that works on it for months and months until that thing is done. Wow. And we'll scope it obviously and help them up front. We have a whole like matching team and team that helps scope. And then on the opposite side, there might be people who just say, we want to just supplement our team. We want one person or maybe two people, and here's the functions, because we already have a good team, but we want to pivot fast. We don't have time to hire a machine learning expert in our city because there's not one. And by the time we hire, we're going to be behind the 8 ball, we're going to be delayed. So could we just get that from you right away? In that case, you might just be kind of by yourself working with that team, like one Toptaler working inside that company's team for a period of time. So there's a huge mix. Sometimes clients maybe might be in like a hiring freeze, but they can work with agencies like ours, an organization like ours, to get that on-demand talent. So there's a big mix of when people are using us. And sometimes those freezes or those opportunities or that need to innovate can last a long time.
100%.
So sometimes we have like multi-year long engagements that for those talent, eventually it kind of feels like that's who they work for and that's their full, well, not kind of, it does. That's who they work for ultimately, right? But their pay is still coming through Toptal and they're still on our platform and can keep an eye on what's going on in the other jobs and in the marketplace, right? Because we have, the job board they can look at. And then some, like jumping from gig to gig. And that's kind of the really cool opportunity in a way, if that's the lifestyle you want to live, right?
Yes.
Like we told that story of moving around. Yeah. Sometimes they want to work on an engagement for a couple months and go to the beach for a few months, relax, and then turn the dial back on. That dial we're talking about, right? They turn their hours off and then when they're ready, they turn it back on.
Exactly. It sounds so much more, I think, especially in this past year, working for people who are working at, whether it be startups or really even large companies, there's always that, with the layoffs happening as of recent, there's always that fear of, I'm going to be unemployed or I'm going to have to find another job. With what you are describing, I think it would take, for me anyways, a lot of those fears away, because knowing I am part of this amazing network, this community, that if this gig is only 5 or 6 months, then there will be other opportunities that Toptal will connect me with. And that, I don't know, as someone who gets anxious over that stuff, that sounds really valuable. Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, the answer is that every marketplace can see fluctuations, right? Like even within ours, but there is certainly that benefit of the fact that we don't have exclusivity. You can get clients on the side. You can change the dial with us when you're ready to. You can see the jobs coming through. So if there is a shift starting to happen, you can also see it, right? Because we have this platform for you. You have peers in there that you can talk to and relate to and understand what's going on. Maybe it's regional, maybe it's your skill set, maybe it's your rate that you're at. That's a really amazing thing too, I will add. We have a whole team at Toptal that are called the talent coaching team.
Okay.
Their job is to support talent with coaching in different situations. So are they never getting past the interview stage? Okay, maybe you need some coaching on how you're coming across in interviews. Come to one of our workshops. Schedule a one-on-one with a coach whose whole career has been executive coaching and coaching people, and they'll look at your profile for you and help see like, maybe you need to enhance here, or maybe you need to practice this skill, right? Yeah. Same with rates. Like they might look and go, okay, I get where you're at, but just to let you know, there are 20 other people that have many more years of experience than you at the exact same rate. So we empower you. You can keep your rate where it is, but we can see that it might be challenging for you. Yeah. And so they'll give you that one-on-one conversation in time. And that's really unique with our network too. Not a lot of you're not going to find another platform that has that same ability and like whole broad team to help you with that. So I think, those kind of things, again, like keep setting you apart, but also allow you to be a little more confident in your career as an on-demand talent.
That is so valuable. You don't hear of that ever.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it didn't exist a few years ago for us either, right? Like it's evolution and we see what's necessary. We hear that feedback and we continue to grow. Yeah.
I love that. It's so important. What advice would you offer to someone who, listening to this conversation, I mean, I'm sitting here speaking with you and I want to go apply to Toptal tomorrow. So I'm sure people who are watching this are feeling the same. And what advice would you give someone who is contemplating a career in freelancing? Is there any insights that you have gained through having conversations with these top freelancers?
Yep. I mean, I think the first question that I'd have people ask themselves is, are you typically motivated by having a task or order given to you and then you going and doing it? Or are you more interested in a more consultative approach where you're really someone who's energized by like helping find that solution and by are you someone who's always going to be 2 steps ahead? Or do you need someone to kind of give you those orders? If you're that first example of kind of needing a task given to you, you might find it a little tougher to be in the world of freelancing, because there is a certain expectation that you're going to be, better than the rest, getting the job done, problem solving in tandem with what those clients' needs are and really listening, right? Certainly we have some of both. We do have some clients who are like, I need this thing. Can you check it off the list? Absolutely. So there is still totally an option for you, but I think it's important to know kind of where you sit within that, and then accept the projects only that fit you within that scope.
Exactly. And I think that's something that going back to, you mentioned earlier that when you are applying to Toptal, it's more so when you have experience, have a few years of experience, or maybe quite a few years of experience. So I think that is something that you learn about yourself with that experience, which is a good thing as well.
Yep. Yeah. And then I think the other common thing that we get from people is questions about taxes and things like that.
Yes.
So we have people in over 80 countries around the world in different cities and regions. Think of even like we're in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Even province to province, that information is different.
Exactly.
So I think like if someone's considering getting into the world of being a contractor, I would say start by understanding that yourself in your own city with your like local people that talk to a tax specialist, an accountant, talk to a lawyer if you're not sure about that piece of it before you kind of jump into this world, because, we can't necessarily fix that for you later. Like you still have to have your own agency in that regard. And that's a big common question that we get. So I think it's like, look into what that means for you financially, because it is different. You can sometimes benefit from taxes of writing off part of your house space that you work in, and your coffee and your car, allowance and things like that. But just understand that a little more before you maybe jump in with both feet, just so that you feel really comfortable and you and your family are set up and safe, because we wouldn't want anyone to misunderstand that aspect of it.
100%. Equip yourself with that knowledge before jumping into something.
Yeah, exactly.
Margaux, I always end these conversations with the same question, which is, what is some advice that you would give to your younger self?
Yeah, I love this one, and it always, different things come to mind. I think like silly things sometimes that you would tell yourself, Tiff. But so I mentioned in the beginning, I used to host a podcast too, and ours was about interviewing the founders of startups about what their journey in Canada was like, starting and growing and scaling a business. And whenever we asked them for like what came to mind quickly of advice that they would have for other entrepreneurs, it's something that I think we could take into this, because it's a bit entrepreneurial what we're talking about here, and it came to mind for me when you asked this question, and that's their advice was always just start. And it's like, it's the simplest thing. Our show was called the Start Canada Podcast, like for that reason.
Perfect.
But just start. I think it's this idea that like, if you were to not be able to do something one day, or one day you die, okay, of course, eventually we're all going to get there. Yeah. No one ever was like in those last moments thinking, that thing I did, I wish I didn't do it I wish I didn't try, right? If there's something that you want to achieve, if there's something that you're interested in going for, maybe that's becoming a freelancer, right? Yeah. Maybe that's what you're thinking of. Just start, take those steps, right? When I said you can change your dial with us, right? It's like, you don't have to go both feet in 100% full-time freelancer tomorrow, right? You can work your way through our screening process, get into the network, find out where your skills are in demand, which one of them, right? And then start to turn that dial on before you quit your day job, right? So I think like it applies so much here, but is something that like, if I went back to tell myself, I might look at it from a different angle a little bit, but that idea of like, just start is still just so important. We're all held back by like, I hear it literally all the time. I'm sure you have friends too that go like, well, Margaux, it must be nice to travel all the time like you, because you have this job where you can work from anywhere or whatever. I'm like, have you asked if you could work from somewhere else to your boss?
Exactly.
Have you asked? Like, just start. Take the little step.
Start. Exactly. Right? Oh, it could be applied to everything.
It could apply to everything.
Yes. Yeah. I don't have any tattoos, and I'm not planning on getting any. But if I did, maybe it would be just start on the palm of my hand or something.
Right? Yeah. Like once you're up and running with that thing, you're never going to think like, I wish I didn't try.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. That's such a great way to end this conversation. Just start.
Just start.
I'm going to link all Toptal's information down below, because I'm sure there's a ton of people who now want to just start. But thank you for taking time to connect with me today, Margaux.
Thanks for having me, Tiff. It was a pleasure.